How to activate the snowball effect, turn income into an empire. You're making decent money, maybe $75,000, maybe $95,000, possibly even six figures. And you're saving some of it, investing some of it, doing what you're supposed to do. But when you look at your net worth, it's just linear. You save $15,000 this year, your net worth goes up by about $15,000, plus maybe a few thousand in investment returns. It's growth, sure, but it's steady, predictable, kind of boring growth that feels like it's going to take forever to actually build substantial wealth. Meanwhile, you hear about people whose wealth seems to explode. They go from $100,000 to $500,000 in what feels like a blink. From comfortable to genuinely wealthy in a handful of years. And you're wondering what they're doing that you're not, what secret they've unlocked that makes wealth building accelerate instead of just trudge forward at this steady, grinding pace. My name is Jack, and I spend way too much time studying wealth acceleration patterns, analyzing the inflection points where linear growth transforms into exponential growth, and specifically trying to understand what activates the snowball effect. That moment when your money starts making more money than you make from your job, when compound growth takes over as the primary driver of wealth building, when you transition from pushing the snowball uphill to watching it roll downhill and gather mass on its own. Because here's what most people don't understand about building an empire from income. There's a phase transition that happens. You're not building wealth the same way at $500,000 that you were at $50,000. The strategies change. The psychology changes. The mathematics change. And the difference between people who stay stuck in linear growth mode versus those who activate exponential growth isn't usually talent or luck. It's understanding how to deliberately trigger that phase transition. So, if you're making good money, but your wealth building still feels like a grind, or if you're trying to understand how to accelerate from comfortable to actually wealthy, this is for you. Because activating the snowball effect isn't magic or mystery, it's a specific process with identifiable steps that anyone with decent income can execute if they understand the mechanics. Building the critical mass foundation. Let's start with the thing nobody wants to hear, but that's absolutely foundational. You cannot activate the snowball effect until you've built critical mass. And critical mass is approximately $100,000 to $150,000 in invested capital. This is the hard part, the grinding part, the phase where wealth building is all about your labor and discipline. You're saving from your income, investing consistently, living below your means. It's not sexy, it's not exponential. It's just showing up month after month and adding to the pile. But here's why this phase is non-negotiable. The snowball effect is driven by compound returns on capital, and compound returns on small amounts of capital are meaningless. 8% returns on $10,000 is $800 a year. That's nice, but it's not changing your life. It's not creating momentum. It's barely noticeable. But 8% returns on $150,000? That's $12,000 a year. That might be more than you're able to save from income in a year. Your capital is now working as hard as you are, producing returns that rival your savings contributions. That's when the psychology shifts. That's when you start to feel the snowball. Most people never get here. They save a little, spend a little, never build the critical mass needed to activate compound growth in any meaningful way. They're trying to start a snowball with a handful of snow. It just doesn't work. I see people making $100,000 a year with $25,000 in net worth after a decade of working. They're not building critical mass. They're treading water with a nicer lifestyle. The snowball effect will never activate for them because they never commit to the grinding phase where you accumulate that initial capital. The brutal truth, most people need to spend 3 to 5 years in aggressive accumulation mode to hit critical mass. Living well below income. Maximizing tax-advantaged investing. Minimizing lifestyle inflation. It's not fun, but it's the price of entry to exponential growth. You can't skip this phase. You can't shortcut it. You have to build the base that everything else compounds from. Think of it as pushing the snowball up the initial hill. Hard work, slow progress, but absolutely necessary before gravity can take over. Maximizing the asymmetric opportunities. Once you have critical mass, the next phase is learning to recognize and capture asymmetric opportunities. Situations where the potential upside dramatically outweighs the downside risk. This is where the wealthy separate from the comfortable. Comfortable people stay safe with their capital. Wealthy people deploy capital into asymmetric bets when they arise. This might look like investing in yourself through education or certifications that could double your income. Taking equity in a startup instead of higher salary. Buying real estate in an emerging area. Starting a side business with high potential and capped risk. Making angel investments. Developing a high-value skill that commands premium rates. The key is that you can only take these opportunities when you have capital to deploy. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, every choice is symmetric. You trade time for money at roughly the same rate always. But when you have $150,000 in capital and financial security, you can afford to take intelligent risks that have 10 times upside potential. I watched this play out with someone who had built critical mass by age 32, about $180,000 in investments. She took a 20% pay cut to join a startup with significant equity. Risky, right? Except she had the capital base to absorb the income reduction for a few years. The startup did well, and her equity stake is now worth over $400,000. Her net worth went from $180,000 to over $600,000 in 4 years. Not from saving, but from one asymmetric bet she could only make because she'd built the foundation first. You can't make those moves from zero. You can't take those risks when you're financially fragile. Critical mass gives you the security to pursue asymmetry, and asymmetric wins are what accelerate wealth building from linear to exponential. The discipline is recognizing which opportunities are genuinely asymmetric versus just risky. Asymmetric means limited downside, significant upside. Betting your entire net worth on crypto is risky, not asymmetric. Investing 10% of your capital in a calculated opportunity with capped loss and high potential gain, that's asymmetric. Creating multiple streams of compounding. Here's where the snowball really starts rolling. Once you have critical mass, you need to create multiple independent streams of compounding growth, not just one. Most people have their job income and maybe some investment returns. 2 streams. But wealthy people engineer 4, 5, 6 different sources of compound growth happening simultaneously. This might include primary career income that's growing, investment portfolio compounding, rental property appreciating and generating cash flow, side business growing, dividend income reinvesting, royalties or passive income from something you created. Each stream independently compounding and the combination creating acceleration you can't achieve with just job plus basic investing. The math gets interesting when you have multiple compounders working together. Your $200,000 investment portfolio grows to $220,000 from returns. Your rental property appreciates from $300,000 to $318,000 and generates $15,000 in net cash flow that you reinvest. Your side business grows from $40,000 to $55,000 in annual profit. Your primary income grows from $100,000 to $110,000. In 1 year, your net worth climbed by nearly $100,000 from these combined growth engines, even though you only saved maybe $25,000 from primary income. The multiple compounders created $75,000 in growth beyond your savings. That's the snowball accelerating. But you can only build multiple compounding streams after you have critical mass. When you're at $30,000 in net worth, you need to focus on one thing: building that base. But once you're at $150,000 plus, you have the capital and capacity to diversify into multiple growth engines. I built this deliberately in my 30s. Primary career growing, investment portfolio compounding, freelance income that I reinvested entirely into more investments. Later, rental property. Each stream wasn't huge individually, but combined they created net worth growth that was multiples of what I could save from income alone. The principle, once you have critical mass, don't just let it sit in one investment portfolio. Engineer multiple sources of compound growth that work in parallel. The combination accelerates wealth building dramatically, leveraging other people's time and money. This is where things get really interesting and where most people get uncomfortable. The snowball effect accelerates dramatically when you learn to leverage other people's time and money, not just your own. When you're building critical mass, it's all your money and your time. You trade your hours for dollars, save those dollars, invest them. But there's a ceiling to how much wealth you can build that way because you only have so many hours. But once you have capital and experience, you can start leveraging leverage. This might mean hiring people to run a business so it grows without requiring all your time. Using mortgage debt to control real estate worth multiples of your cash investment. Investing in other people's businesses or skills. Building systems that generate value independent of your direct labor. A friend built $200,000 in capital through traditional saving and investing by age 35. Then he used $60,000 of it as down payment on a $300,000 rental property. The property appreciated $25,000 in 2 years and generated $12,000 in cash flow he reinvested. He turned $60,000 into $97,000 in 2 years. Through leverage, a return impossible with just traditional investing. Another person I know used $50,000 to start a small e-commerce business, hired virtual assistants to run operations, and it generates $40,000 in mostly passive annual profit that she reinvests. She's leveraging other people's time to create income beyond what her job pays. This is how empires get built, through intelligent use of leverage. Not reckless leverage, not gambling with borrowed money, but strategic use of other people's time, other people's money, and other people's resources to accelerate your wealth building. The caution: leverage amplifies both gains and losses. Don't leverage until you understand what you're doing, have capital to absorb potential losses, and have developed judgment about when leverage is intelligent versus when it's dangerous. Reinvesting at the inflection point. Here's a pattern I see in everyone who's activated the snowball effect. They religiously reinvest returns during the critical growth phase instead of consuming them. When your investments throw off $15,000 in gains, you reinvest all of it. When your side business generates $30,000 in profit, you reinvest it into growth or into other investments. When your rental property cash flows $12,000, you use it to buy another property or to invest in the market. This is the phase where lifestyle discipline matters most. Ironically, because now you actually have meaningful money to spend. You could start living better. You could upgrade your lifestyle with these returns. But if you do, you kill the snowball momentum. The people who build empires from income. They live modestly for years even as their capital grows. They keep driving the paid-off car. They stay in the reasonable apartment. They don't inflate lifestyle just because they could afford to, and they funnel every dollar of returns back into the compounding machine. I watched my net worth cross $300,000, and I was tempted to upgrade everything. But I realized that was exactly the wrong move. That was the moment to be most disciplined about reinvesting because the compounding was finally getting powerful. So I maintained my lifestyle and reinvested everything. And my net worth went from $300,000 to $600,000 way faster than it went from $0 to $300,000 because of that discipline. There's a time to enjoy wealth, but it's not during the inflection point where the snowball is starting to really roll. That's when you pour fuel on the fire by reinvesting aggressively. The psychology is hard because you feel like you've made it and you should enjoy it. But the people who actually build empires delay that gratification until the wealth is truly substantial, not just crossing some arbitrary milestone. Optimizing the tax drag. Here's something that becomes critical as wealth accelerates. Minimizing tax drag on your compounding because taxes can slow the snowball dramatically if you're not strategic. When you're building initial capital, basic tax optimization is enough. Max out 401k, use IRAs, understand basics. But as your wealth grows and you have multiple income streams, tax strategy becomes make or break for acceleration. This might include strategically using tax-advantaged accounts, tax loss harvesting, real estate depreciation, business structure optimization, understanding capital gains holding periods, charitable giving strategies, geographic arbitrage. Whatever legal tools minimize the friction of taxes on your compounding. The difference is substantial. If you're paying 30% in total taxes on growth and income versus someone paying 18% through strategic optimization, that 12% difference compounds into hundreds of thousands over a decade of wealth building. I know someone who built substantial wealth partly through aggressive but legal tax optimization, using retirement accounts efficiently, structuring real estate holdings strategically, timing capital gains intelligently. His effective tax rate on wealth growth was probably 12 to 15 percentage points lower than someone not optimizing. Over 15 years, that saved him over $200,000 that stayed invested and compounding. This doesn't mean tax evasion or sketchy strategies. It means understanding the tax code and using it intelligently to minimize drag on your snowball. And as your wealth grows, the ROI on getting professional tax advice increases dramatically. Most people leave enormous amounts of money on the table through tax inefficiency, and it significantly slows their wealth building. Don't let taxes be the thing that kills your momentum. The mental shift to capital allocation. Finally, the most important transition for activating the snowball effect, shifting your identity and focus from earner to capital allocator. When you're building critical mass, you're an earner. Your focus is on maximizing income from your labor and saving as much as possible. But once you have substantial capital, the highest value use of your time and mental energy shifts to allocating that capital optimally. This means thinking about where capital should be deployed for best returns. What opportunities exist that your capital could capture? How to rebalance across different assets and strategies. When to take gains. When to double down. How to optimize the entire portfolio for growth. Wealthy people spend significant time on capital allocation. They're not just working their jobs and ignoring their investments. They're actively managing how their capital is deployed, making strategic decisions, looking for opportunities, optimizing continuously. This doesn't mean day trading or trying to time markets. It means treating your capital as a business that requires active strategic oversight, not passive neglect. I made this shift around the time my net worth crossed $400,000. I started spending several hours a week just on capital allocation thinking, reading about investment strategies, analyzing opportunities, rebalancing, planning. And the returns on that time investment were enormous because I was making much better decisions about where hundreds of thousands of dollars should be deployed. The transition from I work and save to I strategically allocate capital for maximum growth is the mental shift that separates empire builders from steady savers. The exponential curve becomes visible. Look, here's what actually happens when you activate the snowball effect. Your net worth starts climbing in ways that would have been impossible through saving alone. You start seeing $50,000 or $75,000 or $100,000 increases in a single year, and you realize that your money is now working harder than you are. That's the empire building phase. That's when wealth accumulation shifts from linear grinding to exponential acceleration. And it's not magic. It's the mathematical result of critical mass times, multiple compounders times leverage times, reinvestment discipline times tax optimization times, strategic allocation all working together. Most people never get there because they never build critical mass, or they consume returns instead of reinvesting them, or they never learn to use leverage, or they ignore taxes, or they stay in earner mindset instead of transitioning to allocator mindset. But if you can execute this playbook, build critical mass through discipline, capture asymmetric opportunities, create multiple compounding streams, use intelligent leverage, reinvest at the inflection point, optimize taxes, and shift to capital allocator mindset. The snowball effect isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Your income turns into an empire not through some secret trick, but through understanding and executing these specific phases. And the beautiful thing is that once the snowball is rolling, once you've activated exponential growth, the hard part is over. You're not pushing uphill anymore. You're just steering a force that's building momentum on its own. So wherever you are in this journey, building critical mass, learning to leverage, optimizing your compounders, understand that you're not just saving money. You're building the foundation for exponential growth. And that makes all the difference between comfortable and wealthy, between steady and explosive, between income and empire.